As a public service, Atlanta Federal Savings, Thousand Air Headquarters in Georgia, presents Death Knell, Atlanta 1864. We hope you enjoy.
Oh, these rude reporters.
Last night, Sherman put the torch to Atlanta. Today, the entire city is in flames. Our Confederacy itself going up in its smoke. It is uncertain what Sherman will do now, but having destroyed his lines of communication and supply to Chattanooga, it's thought he will fight his way to the coast. From the start of the Georgia campaign last May, right up to July's vicious fighting at Peachtree Creek, the impending disaster seemed inconceivable. Perhaps those of us at the Atlanta Intelligencer share the responsibility for deceiving ourselves. Yet we were positive the Southern Army, led by brilliant Joe Johnston, could not be beaten. Even last July 5th, with Sherman's men within the very sight of Atlanta, we were still optimistic. To fend off Sherman's 100,000 invaders, General Johnston had command of about 65,000 men. However, Johnston made skillful use of his knowledge of defensive warfare to even the odds of battle. Since fewer men are needed to defend a position than to attack it, Sherman paid dearly for every foot of ground gained. With superior knowledge of the home terrain, Johnston could pick the places of battle, making the enemy fight his way. His men had a more determined reason for fighting: defense of homeland. And with such generals as Hardee, Hood, and Stewart, Johnston had hard-fighting corps commanders to execute his generalship. Even if he should get to Atlanta itself, Sherman would find the most strongly protected city on earth. Earthworks, cannon emplacements, and rifle pits had been a year in preparation. To encompass our city in a siege, Sherman would have to spread his army so thinly, any outnumbered part would be vulnerable to attack. The ratio of needing 3 men to attack a city for every 1 defending it further brought the odds to Johnston's favor, and the Union forces were tied to an ever-lengthening supply line back to their Chattanooga base. Everything seemed in our favor. We waited for Sherman to fall into Johnston's trap.
Henry Fitzner, Wisconsin Artillery, McPherson's Army of the Tennessee. We crossed the Chattahoochee River about 20 miles north of Atlanta in mid-July, with our Army of the Tennessee headed east of Decatur aiming for the Augusta Railroad. There's enough Rebs in front of us to give us all the trouble we can handle. Gonna make dang sure no more of them come in from Virginia. General Thomas and his Army of the Cumberland crossed at Pace's Ferry, coming down through Buckhead. Schofield was between Thomas and us heading to Decatur. We were advancing pretty fast, but we couldn't help wondering what old Joe Johnson had up his sleeve.
Luther Elston, Mississippi Infantry, Hardee's Corps. We're awaiting on them. They don't scare us none. We're kind of playing the spider, luring on the fly. General Johnson reckons Thomas will be cut off from the rest of Sherman's army when he tries to cross Peachtree Creek. Being divided by the creek, exposed and in motion, makes him a real good target. Here tell, following this charge, there's going to be an attack on Sherman's left flank. That's McPherson's army at Decatur. Billy Sherman's at the end of his rope, and we're all sitting waiting to pull the noose tight.
The noose, however, was not for Joe Johnston to pull. He was brilliantly executing a defensive campaign, the only kind of campaign his outnumbered troops could wage. Yet a personal dislike for Johnston by Confederate President Jefferson Davis influenced a decision to replace him with a more aggressive general. Corps Commander John B. Hood, who had long been berating Johnston's policies to Davis, was placed in command. He had gained an awesome reputation as a hard fighter at Gaines Mill, 2nd Manassas, Sharpsburg, Gettysburg, and at Chickamauga. General Hood was no doubt an aggressive man suited for Jefferson Davis' demand for an aggressive policy. But was he suited for defense of Atlanta?
General Hood's too aggressive. Now, we can whoop our weight in Yankees any day of the week, but they've just cut too much for us to stand up and slug it out toe-to-toe. That's what Hood will want to do. I can see it coming. I sure would feel a lot better about this thing if cagey old Joe Johnston was carrying out his own plans.
This is the best news we've had since the whole Georgia shindig started last May. I'm worn out going up against those Rebs battle after battle, them sitting in a trench on a hill grinning at us. Maybe we can dig in, sit back and let them Johnnies try our defenses for a change.
Hood followed Johnston's initial battle plans, with General Cheatham taking command of Hood's corps. Stuart was on the left, Hardee in the center, and Cheatham on the right in the Peachtree Creek entrenchments. July 20th found Sherman's army with a front of 1 mile on his right flank, and his left flank reaching all the way to Decatur, some 8 miles away.
General Cheatham, now commanding Hood's own corps, was between the two wings of the Yankee army. Stuart and Hardee were supposed to attack Thomas and drive him back into Peachtree Creek. Our timing was thrown off when Schofield and McPherson's armies come up from the east faster than we reckoned on. Cheatham, he moved further over to block their advance, and Hardee and Stuart shifted our divisions to take up the slack. Weren't till 3 in the afternoon when we were set to tangle with them, and by this time, Thomas's army had crossed and dug in. But we hit them anyway, and we hit them hard.
I've been fighting in this war for 3 years now, and I've seen my share of battles. But I never seen one that left as many dead and wounded that was laying around Collier's Mill on Peachtree Creek. We were across the creek and already dug in when the Rebs hit us. Surprise in their first attack was the only hope of success that we held. Well, they kept it coming and a coming, sullen, determined, unwilling to accept defeat. Good thing for us, their attacks were sort of piecemeal. Our loss in dead, wounded, and missing was about 2,000. Theirs, I hear, was over 6,000. This is the first time in this Georgia fighting we actually whipped them. And I'll tell you this, if they try a few more attacks like that again, we'll have this rebel army whipped for good. Knowing Hood, I'll bet next month's pay they'll try again.
The Federal movements after the battle left the Confederate flanks insecure, causing them to withdraw from their Peachtree Creek lines to entrenchments about 2.5 miles from Atlanta.
Them Silk Brace ain't wasting any time with that follow-up attack on McPherson. We hardly caught our breath yesterday before pulling out, leaving Stewart and Cheatham guarding the trenches. Last night, our corps headed south through Atlanta. I sure wish Hood had picked another corps besides Hardee's to make the attack, what with all the fighting we done day before yesterday. But I reckon I'd have picked him too. Now, there's a general that knows what he's doing. Why, he even wrote textbooks for West Point. Anyway, with Cheatham facing McPherson in front, our plan is to make a fishhook maneuver, swinging behind the Yankees and squeezing them right out of Georgia. It's been kind of slow going, the whole corps marching at night like that. Them cavalry boys passing us didn't help speed things up none. My own division, commanded by General Walker, has led the march, figuring to be sort of the barbed point of the fishhook that sticks those Yankees right where they ain't expecting it. Daylight finds us 2 miles from Decatur, pausing for the ranks to close up before turning west to the middle of McPherson's rear. All in all, we made pretty good time last night, covering about 15 miles, and my feet are killing me. But the important thing is, the Yankees don't know we're coming.
That same morning of July 22nd, Sherman found the entrenchments in front of Schofield and Thomas abandoned and ordered a general advance. The Federals encountered defensive works where Confederates were digging in as if for dear life. Sherman halted, falling for this ruse to cover Hardee's flanking movement. McPherson, however, continued to advance.
We wondered when we was going to run into the Rebs again. Believe you me, we soon found out. Our cavalry was out destroying the Augusta Railroad, letting General Walker slip in behind us. Well, about noon, we ran into them. Looked like they were as surprised as we were. I suspect some Confederate over there miscalculated, since they never did get as far around us as they'd intended. Hearing the musket fire, McPherson left a conference with Sherman and rode up to set our lines. One thing about McPherson, he was no politically appointed apple polisher like so many of the shoulder straps in this war. If Lincoln had more generals like him, we'd have been home a long time ago. Funny thing, I hear General Walker, leading the rebel assault, was killed a few moments after McPherson. We never had the slightest doubt who was going to get the best of this scrap. Ever since leaving Dalton last May, we've been confident. It's just a matter of time before Billy Sherman can catch up to this Secesh army and smash it once and for all. Now, for the first time, we aren't quite so sure. We stopped the first surprise attack, we dug. Man, we threw up earthwork so fast, you'd thought we were building Atlanta instead of tearing it down. And Hardee still didn't attack us from behind. If you don't think that was one heck of a fix, being caught in that triangle of murderous fire was just about enough to make us head for home. It took some pretty cool-headed soldiering to fight, leaping back and forth like that.
Although we found out General Walker took the wrong road and didn't get far enough to the rear, we had them Yankees coming and going. Only problem was, Hardee and Cheatham couldn't ever get together on an attack at the same time. I never seen anybody as lucky as them Yanks, or as unlucky as us. We fell back when it got dark. 10,000 of us was gone. Killed, wounded, or missing. Somebody told me the Yanks lost only 3,500. We're supposed to be making them pay at least 2 to 1. Somebody ain't figured right.
There still was hope for the Southern Army in Atlanta, even after the stinging defeat at Peachtree Creek. Atlanta was in no real danger of being taken. Successful execution of the night march and hooking maneuver behind McPherson would no doubt have forced Sherman to pull back for a long siege. However, with the second consecutive disaster 2 days later, the handwriting was on the wall. But Hood had been given the command to fight, and he wasn't through yet. Atlanta's population is only 22,000, but it was the heartbeat of our Southern cause, manufacturing weapons, munitions, clothing, shoes, and wagons. Its warehouse collected meat and grain that were fed through our arteries of railroads. As important as the material value of the city, its psychological prominence weighs heavily on the outcome of this whole bitter struggle. A Union victory would again cut the South in two, further isolating Lee in Virginia. A Confederate victory in Atlanta, or even the stalemate of a siege, could perhaps give the South a negotiated peace. In the North, war weariness is a stark fact. With our recent stunning victories in Virginia, Lincoln's popularity is on the line, with the Northern election only a few months away. A less adamant Union president would have a national mandate to sue for peace. Sherman's goal now was to cut Atlanta's last remaining supply outlet, the Macon Railroad. Cheatham was replaced by S.D. Lee and assigned to guard the strong Confederate fortifications crossing the Macon Railroad running south of the city at Lickskillet Road. On July 28th, the Federal Army of the Tennessee moved out to cut this last remaining artery.
Hood's determined to hit 'em again. If anybody should ask me, I've had it up to here charging them dug-in Yankees. Don't mind it so much them coming at me when I can sit back and pick 'em off, but I don't go for two of them sighting in on every one of us. But then don't guess they asked us privates how to do this fighting. Oh, General S.D. Lee is moving out Lickskillet Road to drive 'em back. Stewart's supposed to move past Lee, turn the Yankees' flank, and get 'em in the rear. Sort of a small-scale version of the way we were supposed to do it last week near Decatur. Sure does look good on paper, but I just don't know.
We ran into advanced skirmisher of Lee's Corps southwest of Atlanta near Ezra Church. Took cover on high ground with an open field in front. Then we bent back our right to tighten up, waited for those determined Reds to hit us again.
Fight another day after our first attack was coming back. We charged them again, and again, getting nowhere.
The Union lines were strengthened between battle attacks, and in the later charges, the exhausted Confederate troops refused to advance. Our valiant Southern Army again got the worst of it. An estimated 5,000 casualties, 600 for the North. The generalship of retreating Joe Johnston was vindicated by President Jefferson Davis' order to Hood, which read, "The loss consequent upon attacking him and his entrenchments requires you to avoid that, if practicable." August 27, 1864. All but one corps of Sherman's armies are now south of Atlanta. Hood is following his movements with light cavalry reconnaissance. The remainder of our cavalry has gone north of the Chattahoochee to attack Sherman's railroad supply lines. To the disagreement of many subordinates, Hood figures the movement of the Northern Army means Sherman is retreating, our cavalry cutting him short of supplies.
When he learned Sherman really was going all out to destroy the Macon Railroad, Hood ordered Hardee to command both ours and S.D. Lee's corps on a march down to Jonesboro to fend him off. We had it all set to make a combined attack, but darned if Lee didn't misunderstand the signal and jump the gun. If we could ever get together on an attack, we might do something.
Carried the rumor back to Atlanta that Sherman was moving up to Rough and Ready, Georgia. Hood now interpreted Sherman's Jonesboro activity as a feint, with his real intention being to directly attack Atlanta. Going on this assumption, unaware of the intensity of the Battle of Jonesboro, he recalled General S.D. Lee at 6 p.m. Hardee was instructed to cover the railroad as best he could.
Don't know how much longer we can go on this way. I'm afraid we're like a little banty hen trying to fight off a weasel. We're willing, but we just ain't big enough. Good thing it got dark when it did. That's the only thing that kept Sherman from running all over us. That and his not knowing Hood had pulled out Lee's corps, leaving us a-setting here like ducks on a pond.
September 1st. Another month. This is the 5th one now since we started chasing the Johnny Rebs over this red clay country. Now that we cut into Hood's only remaining railroad supply line, it's bound to be the last. Their attacks yesterday showed they just don't have it anymore. Beats me how they held out this long. Wonder if it's true about Hardee being left by himself over there? We'll soon find out. Sherman has ordered another advance. So, here we go again.
We dug in real tight. Held them off all day, then come nightfall, quit when we were ahead, and moved on down to Lovejoy Station. About midnight, back in Atlanta, Hood must have known the Yankees had cut our last remaining railroad. You could hear him blowing up them ammunition cars all the way down here. 81 of them, somebody said. He's evacuated the city and joining us here at Lovejoy Station. What they say is true. We'll be heading back up to Tennessee. Don't know why, when, or what for. Do know one thing, though. I sure do wish them Richmond politicians had left the fighting to old Joe Johnston and me.
Where does the Confederacy go from here? Without provisions from Georgia, the fate of General Robert E. Lee is sealed. The North's re-election of Lincoln last week assures their determination to secure a Union victory at all costs. Truly, the death knell has sounded. Today is lost. Yesterday is gone. What of tomorrow? What does the future hold for Atlanta and the South? The answer will be found in our people. If they can rebuild as energetically and courageously as they fought, tomorrow is secure.
Death Knell, Atlanta 1864, has been presented by Atlanta Federal Savings, Thousand Air Headquarters in Georgia. We hope you enjoy it.